drug cartels literally put the word organized in organized crime. Cartels are so well structured that they are more similar to the best corporate companies in the world than they are to mindless and chaotic gangs. Think of drug cartels like the evil version of Amazon, because not only are the basics of the operations similar, but even their revenues are about the same. Many drug cartels would actually rank high in the Fortune 500 company list. After all, the drug trade is an estimated $320 billion per year market. Over the years, we have gotten a better understanding of how these cartels work and why they are so successful. I will be taking you down the dark alleyways of how drug cartels work. First, let's define cartel. When you hear this word, what comes to your mind is most likely an armed gang trafficking drugs. But that is not it at all. Cartels have existed for thousands of years and even originated from traders engaged in legal commodities. Cartels are formed when a group of sellers band together to intentionally control a market. So drug cartels are essentially drug traders seeking to control the drug trade. But in this case, they are also ready to use violence to accomplish their objectives. Just like any multi-billion-dollar company, the whole business is based on a well-thought-out operational system, and there is always an underlying business plan. It may interest you to know that drug lords see themselves as businessmen, and that is the way they handle their cartels. These guys just don't wake up one day and start shipping narcotics. A lot of planning and thought goes into it, and just like all other businesses, it is all about providing supply where there is a demand. Cartels deal in almost any illicit drugs you can think of, but the biggest cartels favor the most profitable product, which has an insanely high markup, which will be discussed later. While drug cartels exist on every continent, the Mexican and Colombian cartels are the most notorious, richest, and prolific of them all. These cartels, also called narcos, are going to be our case study as they are the best in the business. The number one reason why the narcos are so successful is primarily a result of what is called strategic positioning in the business world. These cartels are strategically positioned between the biggest supply of cocaine and the largest market for the white powder, as South Africa is where the highest volume and quality of cocaine is produced, and the United States consumes this drug in shiploads. According to the White House archives, Americans spend an estimated $100 billion on illegal drugs every year, of which about $30 billion is spent on. The business plan of these cartels focuses on supply from the cheapest sources and distribution. But because this is an illegal enterprise, a lot more is needed than just having a supply chain. Guns and muscles play an important role too. But interestingly, these cartels also engage in PR management and social responsibility as a strategy to control their territories. Yet, these are not even half the departments needed to run a successful cartel. These organizations are so professional that they even have their own research and development departments, where new processing techniques are developed, and they are also responsible for very sophisticated smuggling techniques designed to evade law enforcement. Their operations are so advanced that they have engineers and technicians who build special purpose vehicles for the transportation of narcotics. One of their most advanced innovations was the creation of submarines to move drugs into the United States. And did I mention that having an investment management team is also a key part of a successful cartel? After all, the billions of cash generated every year need to be reinvested and cleaned of any taint of drugs. Just like any big corporation, the cartels spare no expense in getting the most brilliant minds to work for them. It may surprise you that real chemists work on the production end, and these are often very brilliant professionals. When the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted supply to the cartels, El Chapo's Sinaloa Cartel hired a team of chemists to help solve difficulties in production. To really understand how these cartels are built, we would need to go back in time and review the stories of some of the biggest names in this shady yet profitable business. The biggest drug lord of all time is Pablo Escobar, who founded the most successful drug cartel in history, the Medellín Cartel. Escobar, just like any other drug cartel founder, started out as a criminal at a young age. This seems to be a common denominator for any cartel startup, as you cannot find any founder who did not walk this path. Usually, a criminal career in smuggling contraband seems to be the best experience needed to start a successful career in this industry. In the case of Escobar, he started as a tombstone thief before he graduated to car theft and kidnapping. But it was when Escobar started working with Alfredo Gomez Lopez, a prominent smuggling ring kingpin who specialized in smuggling cigarettes, that Escobar redefined his career path in crime. In 1982, the world's first true cartel would be formed when Escobar partnered with the infamous Ochoa brothers and Jose Gacha to form the Medellín Cartel. It is not a drug cartel if it is not a conglomerate of drug traffickers, and if it lacks a leadership structure. This is what defines a cartel because it is all about control, and the Medellín Cartel indeed controlled the drug trade, not just in Colombia, but about 80% of cocaine shipped to the United States belonged to the Medellín Cartel. This amounts to a lot of cash that needs to be moved back to the cartels, but it has to be done in such a way that the authorities would have no clue these funds are proceeds of the drug trade. This is where investment and financial experts come in. Money laundering is another important part that has to be taken care of, and surprisingly, the cartels use banks to do a lot of the dirty work for them. Banks in Panama were conduits for cleaning out the source of drug money from the United States and managing proxy accounts for these cartels. Now, US banks are also getting in on the action. In the 1980s and 1990s, Miami was a key entry and stopover for most drug traffickers, and it is said that the billions of dollars that flowed through this city practically built Miami, as the traffickers opened businesses they use in laundering proceeds of their drug trade. Now, maintaining control is what makes cartels so dangerous. Cartels need to deal with the government, and even more importantly, deal with the other smugglers and cartels. Just like Facebook is trying to buy out all competition in the social media market, so do drug cartels try to harness their competitors. But unlike Facebook, cartels are willing to employ deadly force to get what they want. Mexican cartels in particular have evolved to become extremely deadly. Cartels such as the Tijuana Cartel, Los Zetas, and Sinaloa Cartel, just to mention a few, engage in hostile takeovers of entire towns in Mexico, where the cartel drives into a town and basically forces all smugglers, criminals, and even innocent people to work for them. Refusal usually means getting executed. With so much money at the disposal of these cartels, they typically can afford their own armies and equip them with arms and munitions that make it difficult for even the national armies of their host nations to tackle them. The power and threat these cartels pose would be fully exposed when in October 2019, the army arrested Ovidio Guzman, son of one of the leaders of the Sinaloa Cartel. This victory would not last because the national army got outgunned and the president had to embarrassingly order the army to hand Ovidio Guzman back to the cartel. But it is not just brute force the cartels use. Force is actually a last resort. Giving out bribes is a huge part of every cartel's operation. The narcos would offer to pay their way to get anything. Usually, these cartels have policemen, soldiers, politicians, and even judges on their payroll. Pablo Escobar took it a notch higher, offering to pay off the Colombian national debt of $10 billion if he could be excluded from the Colombian-US extradition law. Even though the cartels are violent gangs that cause a lot of pain to their communities, they still manage to gain public support by carrying out a lot of community development and even setting up charities. These criminal organizations build churches, schools, and houses and donate huge sums to their communities. This wins them enough public support, which they need to stay in business. During the COVID-19 crisis, the cartels took advantage of the situation to support the communities with aid. The public sympathy for these cartels is part of why it's so difficult to stop them. Due to these being such behemoth businesses, they are almost impossible to take down. Remember the size of Amazon. It would be easier to reduce the consumers of their drugs to completely eliminate them. But as that is almost an impossibility, the cartels aren't going anywhere anytime soon. So for now, we can at least scratch the surface of how a cartel works, and at least understand the business acumen and negotiating skills it takes to run a cartel.